I hope you look at the number of things on that list and say, wow, I'm actually able to do more in a year than I would have thought. But is that progress intentional progress towards the things that I want, or is it just getting a lot of things done because they fell onto my desk because I was passively just accepting things? I think the goal here is to say, as you set your goals, to also be setting your intention to allocate that time, energy, and focus to the priorities that you are setting, not just to whatever shows up. Welcome to Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am your host, Jeff Welch, and I help small business owners overcome overwhelm and replace overthinking with intentional action. What is up? Welcome to episode 44 of Your Business is Not Your Boss. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about 3 things I hope you will do before you start setting goals for the new year. 3 things that I think are pretty important to address before you start really thinking about those goals. Before we do that, I've got 3 other things. I have a PDF called 3 Questions Every Small Business Owner Needs to Ask Before the End of the Year. It's not the same 3 things as I'm talking about today, but there are 3 questions that I think that if you are really digging into before the end of the year, if you give just a little time to consider them, they are going to help you shape how to make your business work for you in the coming year, as opposed to either being along for the ride or finding yourself working for your business, finding yourself in a position where your business is in charge and you're taking you're taking your assignments from it instead of it being my business works for me. I mean, the name of this podcast, Your Business is Not Your Boss, is based on that whole idea. You boss your business around, not the other way around. So that PDF is available for free at jeffwelch.com/questions. You can grab it today. And, oh, by the way, at the end of that PDF, there is a way to connect with me for the opportunity to have a free 90-minute strategy session before the end of the year. I'm doing just a handful of these before the year ends, and it's a little bit of an experiment, but I want to give small business owners the opportunity to not just go through this PDF, which is valuable on its own, but to really have the time to say, let's dig into what you found as a result of that, and let's talk about how you apply that in the coming year. So if that sounds valuable to you at all, free PDF, the opportunity to have a free 90-minute session with me, jeffwelch.com/questions. To set this up, I think we're approaching the end of the year. We're approaching a time of year where people are thinking about the coming year. They're thinking about what their goals might be for the next year. And that could be goals for your business. It could be personal goals, what you want. I think the life of a small business owner that is so entwined, our personal goals and our business goals are so interrelated sometimes that it's hard to tell where the edges are. So I don't care about that distinction specifically, but we're thinking about the coming year, and I'll tell you, you'll probably hear this a few times before the calendar turns to 2025, but I'm not a big believer in the idea of New Year's resolutions. I think every day is a chance to get up and say, you know what, here's how I want to approach this differently. And I think the smartest, most effective people don't wait for some sort of arbitrary, here's this mile marker that says I can go change and do that. If that serves you well, I don't care about that. I don't have a problem with anybody that wants to set New Year's resolutions. That's totally fine. I just don't think it's necessary. I think you can set those resolutions. You can set that intention to operate differently anytime you want to. So if you screw it up by February 15th, start over on the 16th. It can happen anytime you want. So I'm saying that to say that this time of year, this comes up a lot, But what I hope you will consider as I'm going through this is that you can apply this to if you're listening to this in June, do it in June, right? If you're listening to this whenever, there's no reason why you couldn't apply this at any time of the year when you say, I want to reflect on what I've done and what I am going to do, set intentions for what I'm going to do. So we're thinking a lot about setting goals for next year, but one thing that I don't think we often do as well is to go back and mine the past experience, the experiences of the past year, and say, what has this taught me about myself, about my abilities, about my business, that will help shape the goals I set? I mean, you can just set a bunch of goals and say, these are things that I would like to be true, and that's fine. And for many of you, that will work out just fine. But for some, setting arbitrary goals just based on an idea and a hope that we have does not account for what we're bringing to the table, what we're capable of, where we're at on our journey in terms of like how skilled, how proficient am I? I mean, I could set a bunch of incredibly lofty goals for next year that are probably impractical and are going to disappoint me when I should be saying, these are my long-term goals right now based on what I know and where I'm at. Here's the next phase for me. Here's the next set of steps. So I've got 3 things that I would love for you to do before you start setting those goals that I think will really help you when you start to set the goals. One is just consider the past year and consider what worked, and then ask yourself why. So consider, the systems you've used, the processes you've used, the maybe the makeup of your employees, any of the things that you've done in the past year, roughly. And what of those things work? The campaigns you've run, the way that you've interacted with customers or the way that you've reached out to prospects. What has worked and why? What has worked, just making a list of the things that worked, is not good enough because you're trying to understand, how can I take what I learned from those things working and on 2 fronts. One, make sure they continue to work, right? I want to ensure that these things stay humming and stay, moving on like they should. But also, how can I apply what I learned from that experience, either the discipline it took to make that happen, the research I did, what can those things teach me, the things that worked, about how to take on a new initiative in the coming year, a new goal, a new directive, and apply those same behaviors, habits, whatever, to these new things to give them a greater chance of working, okay? So mine the past year for things that have worked, things that you're pleased with, things that turned out the way or better than you hoped they would, and figure out reverse engineer those things. What was the cause of that? How did I get those things to work the way that they needed to be? Some are going to be, I was in the middle of them and I made sure to do X, Y, and Z. And some are going to be, I stepped outside of it and let somebody else handle it. Okay? So what worked and why? And of course, the flip side of that is number 2, what didn't work and why? This is not a pity party. Again, the why is important. This is not just about cataloging the things that broke and feeling sorry for yourself, but saying, we tried this, we tried that, and for some reason they didn't work. And it's not necessarily about saying, and here's how we're going to make them work in the future. That could be part of it. But to learn from those things so that one, what could I do differently to improve the likelihood that could work? And 2, what do I just need to cancel? What do I need to say, we're not doing that anymore because it's broken? I think both of those are important because sometimes we will find ourselves like fully committed to something that is not going to work, and we're wasting a lot of time and energy repeating bad behaviors on something that is not getting us the results that we hope for. So I think that sometimes we need to consider that and say, this might be something I need to cancel. And of course, the flip side of that is sometimes something doesn't work the way we hoped and we give up on it immediately. And we say, that's dumb, I don't like it. Instead of saying, what could I do differently to increase the chances of it working? How can I pick apart the way that I, set this up, or, the process we used, the way we went about it. How do I change something to maybe give us a chance to do it? I tell you, I do a little woodworking on the other side of this wall, and I would say a very little bit of woodworking, but there have been a handful of projects that I've gotten about 2/3 of the way through and realized I'd made a fatal error on like step 2, and it's finally coming to the surface like, oh wait, this can't work anymore because of something I did early on in the process. And you have that moment where you're gonna have to tear it apart, take a bunch of things apart in order to get it where it needs to go. And in that moment, do I rarely say, uh-oh, and then just start tearing things apart? That's usually when I look at it and I take a step back and I say, I can't do this. And I walk away because I need some space. And an hour later, I think to myself, yeah, well, I'm going to go back out there and work on that a little bit more. Sometimes we need a little separation from the thing that didn't work in order to get our mindset square so that we can say, all right, I can reapproach this. But examining the things that went wrong gives us the ability to determine, do I need to tweak this? Is there an opportunity for a different path to get me the solution or the outcome that I'm hoping for? Or am I ramming my head into a wall and making myself miserable because I'm trying to do something that just isn't going to work the way I thought it would? Okay? Those kind of things, enlisting the help of outside, have someone else look at it, that can really, really be useful if you're on the fence about whether or not giving up or regrouping is the best path forward, because sometimes you're too close to it and you can't see it. But start with examining it for yourself and asking yourself those whys. If you can't figure it out, if you can't come to the spot where you're like, I know that I should cancel it, or I know that I should double down on it, enlist the help of somebody outside, someone that can help you look at it differently. Okay? So we've looked at the things that have worked, figured out why they've worked so that we know how to apply that in the future. We've looked at the things that didn't work, and we've determined whether or not there are tweaks that can be made, things need to be canceled. How do I avoid the same kind of outcomes in the future? What behaviors maybe led to that? What kind of thinking led me to that outcome? And how do I avoid that in my future goals? And third, make a list of all the stuff you got done this year. And this probably seems a little bit daunting. I use the calendar to help me with this. It doesn't have to be fully complete. The objective is not to literally capture everything you did this year. But I like to keep this list for 2 reasons. And I generally am doing it 3 times throughout the year, so I'm not, trying to come up with 12 months at once. But I would suggest just going back in your calendar, whether that's on your computer, on your phone, the physical calendar, whatever. Go back to January and start walking through it and say, okay, well, in January, we did this, and then I made sure that got done. You're capturing this list of completions for 2 reasons. One, to celebrate. I think that almost everyone I work with as a coach, celebration is not something that they are particularly good at. I don't know if that's just a small business owner trait. I see it in a lot of other professionals that I've worked with and that I interact with in the past. Things are moving so quickly. The next thing is always upon us, that sometimes we don't take the time to celebrate the things that we're accomplishing along the way. And in fact, we barely even recognize that they happened, that they were done. There's this moment maybe when we cross it off our to-do list that it feels great. It's funny though, my to-do list is this list of items. So I'm a a to-do list fiend. But I got a list of projects, and then I got a list of actions that are subdivided in different ways. And those projects range from massive things that are going to take a long time to complete and are, big projects, and smaller things that maybe take half an hour to complete. And they look the same. They're the same size. They basically have the same weight on paper. And crossing off something that took me half an hour to do and crossing off something that took me half a month to do, it's the same outcome. And I want there to be more. I want one of those to be like, I want to cross off 75 things to do that. That's a me problem. But so some of the things you're capturing are going to be like small, more mundane kind of things, and others are going to be larger, more significant things. But I think it's worth celebrating a little bit. Holy cow, look at all I got done, because one, I just think it's good for us. I think that we need to be recognizing what we are accomplishing. But two, so often I think we feel like we're just treading water. We feel like, aside from maybe a couple significant blips here and there, that we're working hard all the time and we're spending a lot of time doing stuff, but the progress feels like inches. And to look back at a year and look back at a list of things that were completed is kind of this cool moment of being like, oh yeah, no, I did that. I forgot that happened this year. Or I forgot that I even did that. Like some of these things, you're going to sort of start to conjure them, and maybe you enlist a spouse or a partner to help you walk through those. Maybe someone else in your business to sort of help remind you of what was going on at a specific time or the kind of things you accomplished. But man, I hired a new bookkeeper. I attended that conference and met that new vendor. Documented 26 processes, like whatever, right? There are all these different things that are going to pop to the surface of your mind. Just put them down, okay? Because on the one hand, you're going to have this ability to celebrate, and you're going to have the opportunity to review all this and say, I actually did do a lot this year. It felt like I was just, surviving sometimes, but wow, I got a lot of stuff done. And that's the one sort of overtly positive side. The more maybe veiled positive side, it's going to feel a little less positive, is to also critique how you've been spending your time and to challenge yourself to say, were these things, the things that I've listed as completions, were these things that I needed to do? Were these things I could have delegated to somebody else? Were these things that aligned most closely with the goals that I set for myself a year ago, with the things that I was trying to accomplish? This is an opportunity to review how you allocated your time, energy, and focus across the last year, and evaluate, is that the best way that I could have spent that time, energy, and focus? Again, the goal is not to be critical from a judgmental, you did it wrong standpoint. The goal is to identify opportunities. Okay, so we are celebrating that you got a lot of stuff done. That there are really a surprising number of things that were accomplished this year, even maybe when it feels like not as much was getting done as you thought. And we're also evaluating, what were those things the best, highest use of your time? Not everything is going to be. And you are likely going to have a lot more small things on this list than major accomplishments. That's just the nature of the beast. So you can't do it based on the number of things on the list, right? But I want you to just be considerate of, was the majority of this time well spent? Were these things that I could have handed off to somebody else and focused my time elsewhere? Because in the coming year, as you consider the goals that you're about to set, the things that you want to sort of aspire to and envision for the coming year, I hope you look at the number of things on that list and say, wow, I'm actually able to do more in a year than I would have thought. There actually is a lot more progress that's happening. But is that progress intentional progress towards the things that I want, or is it just getting a lot of things done because they fell onto my desk because I was passively just accepting things, right? I think the goal here is to say, as you set your goals, to also be setting your intention to focus that time, energy, and focus. When I start with focus, it sounds wrong. To allocate that time, energy, and focus to the priorities that you are setting, not just to whatever shows up. Okay, the tendency for you, when you don't have this set of intentions, when you don't have a sort of internal directive to say, this is where I'm headed, this is what I work on, these are my priorities, there's a vacuum, and that's going to get filled with something. And so you're not just going to be sitting around one afternoon saying, I'm not working on any of my priorities today. That's weird. You're going to be doing 47 other things that showed up for you, that showed up in an email, that showed up when your employee came to your office, that showed up just as the phone rang and stuff happens. Those things are going to feel much more important and much more like you must address them when you don't have a clear picture of where you're going. Okay, so what I want you to do from this list is say, were the things that I accomplished, were they derived from a sense of direction and intention from the goals that I set last year, or were they more passive pursuits, things that I did because they were here, they showed up? Okay, number one, what worked, why? Apply that to what's coming down the road, right? What you're looking toward. Two, what didn't work and why? Figure out what you need to renegotiate, what you need to cancel, and how to apply the learning from your missteps to what you're planning for the future. How to not make some of those missteps again. You'll make some missteps. It's inevitable. But I think the goal is to not make the same missteps, right? And three, make a list of all the stuff you got done. Make as comprehensive as you can of the stuff you accomplished this year, so that you can celebrate that you're actually able to do a lot more than you thought, and evaluate whether or not those things were the best use of your time, and how to sort of apply in the coming year. I need my time, energy, and focus placed squarely on the things that matter most. And I need to limit interruptions by delegating. I need to limit interruptions by, solving some systems that may not be in perfect working order. How do I build the systems and the processes that I need to have space for the work that I need to accomplish? Okay? That's it from me. Again, before we go, I do want to remind you that, if you are interested at all in improving your experience with your business in the coming year, making that business more of what you want it to be, getting more of what you want out of it, making it work for you, I encourage you to grab my PDF, 3 questions every small business owner needs to answer before the end of the year. It's a long one, it's a mouthful, but it's a quick read, and I think will be inspiring and will help you really approach the coming year and the goals that you are about to set with a greater sense of clarity around, am I getting what I want out of this? And what do I need to do to ensure that? Okay, that's at jeffwelch.com/questions. And when you download it, you will also have the opportunity to snag 90 minutes of strategy time with me to really go through some of those questions and really make a plan for how you want to proceed in the coming year. I hope you will grab that, and I would love to be able to work with you soon. All right, so again, before you set your goals, I really think reflecting on what worked, what didn't, and how you spent your time is an important, what do you call it? In college, when you have to take one class before another, it's going to escape me. Prerequisite. It's an important prerequisite for ensuring that your goal setting time is used effectively. All right, that's it for me. Do not forget, your business is not your boss.